Brethren, on behalf of the Grand Master of Masons in Massachusetts, Most Worshipful Paul Fulton Gleason, and Bill Yannikakis, who is the chairman of the Grand Lodge Membership Development Committee, I want to thank all of you for taking part in this 2018 Masonic Ambassador Training. Brethren, if you go online to massmasons.org and you click on the Lodge Ambassador stamp, you'll be able to find all of these modules that we'll be going through today. In addition, if you have to leave early, I apologize first that we're a little bit delayed this morning. But if you have to leave at noontime when we said this was going to end, you can always come back onto massmasons.org and you can click on the link and you can actually watch this in its entirety. So thank you again for attending. Also, if you have any questions today during the day, what you can do is you can email them into us. We also have a live audience, so some questions are going to be coming in. We may not be able to get to all of them, but we'll do the best we can. We have a very busy Masonic year coming up. As most of you know, we have a Lodge open house, which is in about 3 weeks, October 20th. So we are going to be talking about marketing materials that you can share in your community, different organizations that you can go after, possibly cooperative organizations that may want to take part in the open house. One of the things we're looking to get a great attendance at is the Grand Master's one-day class of Blue Lodge degrees will be held in the Boston Grand Lodge, and that's going to be March 9th. The important thing to remember is that you have to go through the process with an applicant just like you normally would. We do have to register these applicants so that they're ready to go for the one-day class in March, so time is of the essence. Although you're here taking the ambassador training, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll be part of the investigating committee. However, the Lodge Masters do need to be aware, and the Lodge Secretaries do need to be aware that there is process still has to be followed through. As we go through these modules this morning, we're going to go through quite quickly because once you do download them, you can look at them line by line. We're going to be touching on them as well. Some of them we're going to expound on, others we're just kind of jump over because we feel they're pretty self-explanatory. We hope you'll take these modules back to your lodge, speak with the master, ask if he would add some additional ambassadors, and then you can then take the time to go over these modules and then get in a sense of what would make sense in your lodge to be doing. These modules are a guide. Most of you brothers are broad thinkers. You have your own ideas of what works well in your lodge. Just as we go through these, think of how this can be best served in your lodge. The first module is Foot Soldiers for Membership. In today's world, the ambassadors are in place to help lighten the load of the master of a lodge. The ambassador program is designed to assist the master with the tools for membership development, retention and engagement, Masonic awareness. I can tell you if any of you are past masters of the lodge or secretaries, the night of a meeting is very, very busy. And when you have guests coming on the lodge, visitors, you have maybe possibly the district deputy, you don't necessarily have the time to stop what you're doing in preparation for the beginning of the lodge to attend to these people. And that's what you as a lodge ambassador is meant to do. There are 4 key areas where ambassadors should be playing a pivotal role. Being a spokesman for the craft, engaging and mentoring members, knowing about your product, who we are, what we do, our history, your lodge's history, what makes us different, presenting your message with positive results. Brethren, it's important to know a little bit about what your lodge does, what it does in the community. What is it that what made you join the fraternity? As you're a spokesman for this craft, you want to be able to share information with those brothers that come in, when you have applicants, and the families that come in. This is not a passive position. You're expected to greet visitors at lodge, functions, open houses, etc. You're like the host of the party. Pay attention. And if anyone is in need, don't wait for someone else to act. I have to tell you that as much as I love this fraternity, when you go to lodges, you do find that there are cliques. There are brothers that always sit together. There are brothers that always eat together. And if I am a new person coming into your lodge, there's a high likelihood I'm going to walk in and I may not know anyone. As a lodge ambassador, you should be looking around for those visitors. You should be walking up, introduce yourself to them, find out who they are, why they're there, and then introduce them to someone else in the lodge that they can sit with during the meeting. Again, this is not a passive position. The Grand Lodge Membership Development Committee is always thinking of ways to drive membership. You should be doing the same. We're all well aware of the members in our lodge who are older and unfortunately are going to be passing away in the next several years. We have those brothers that haven't been coming back in some time. We want to try to re-engage them. But we also have to be looking at new ways to bring in new members. Now, I'm not just talking the 20 and 30-somethings. We have brothers that, or excuse me, I should say gentlemen in the 50, 60-year range that they would like to join this craft. So keep your eyes open as you're out there looking for potential members. The district ambassador is appointed by the district deputy grand masters. They should be traveling with the district deputy grand master on all of his visits. The district ambassador is the chief spokesman for membership in the district. Works closely with all lodge ambassadors. Now, this person should be your mentor. In a perfect world, the lodge ambassadors from the district would be meeting with the district ambassador on a monthly basis, share ideas, and work together with programs. Brethren, if you have any questions as we go through, please feel free to raise your hand and we can pose questions. This is supposed to be highly interactive, and different lodges have different ways of doing things, different histories, so feel free to speak up. The ambassador ladder, the ambassador program falls under the purview of the Membership Development Committee. You have the Membership Development Committee, then you have the District Deputy Grand Masters. You have district ambassadors and then lodge ambassadors. Ambassadors are utilized in all areas of business, as well as charitable groups. They represent the voice of the organization. In Freemasonry, ambassadors many times will be the first exposure of someone to the craft. You will be our voice. You're a point of contact. Brother, when someone comes in, they have a desire to learn more about this fraternity. Do we know what that desire is? We don't. The only way that's going to happen is when you meet someone, whether they walk in an open house or possibly you see them in public and they see you wearing a ring or a Masonic polo shirt, whatever it happens to be, you want to ask them, what is their interest? Possibly they had a family member that was a member years ago. Maybe they love history. You just don't know what it is. The mistake we make is that we think someone wants to join the fraternity because why we joined. It certainly could be. But we need to ask more questions than just giving out information. Does that make sense? Where will you be needed as a lodge ambassador? Masonic open houses. I can tell you it's very disheartening when I walk into a lodge and there is an open house going on. You have 3 lodge ambassadors, and I ask where they are as people are coming in looking for membership information, and they say all 3 of them happen to be in the kitchen making pancakes. As a lodge ambassador, you're the spokesman. You should be out in the front hall as a greeter, welcoming people. If you have to, have 1 or 2 other lodge ambassadors in the kitchen if necessary, but please make sure lodge ambassadors, you have the information, you've been trained. You should be out to greet the public. As a liaison to the local media, we have information that you can get directly from Grand Lodge that you can tweak and put into your local newspapers. And this is the information that you should be sharing on a regular basis, not just 1 month before an open house. You could be a speaker at a Rotary, a Kiwanis Club, or some other organization like that. It's important for you to remember that if you're going to go out as a speaker, you have basic information about the fraternity, why you love the fraternity. You want to find out the club that you're going to, what's their history, what are the donations that they make. For example, and I mentioned this the other night when we were over in Framingham, is that part of our Masonic family are the Shriners. We're helping children all the time. You could have a Rotary or Kiwanis Club, and their biggest charity happens to be local children. So if you're a speaker and you make the comment that Shriners are the biggest contributors to children's youth organizations and helping them, you've just alienated that club you're talking to. What you can do is let them know that, gee, I understand that, let's say this particular Rotary Club, they have these fundraisers for local youth organizations. We do the same thing, but just in a different way, and this is how we could work together. So you want to build some camaraderie between the different groups. Certainly being a speaker at Rainbow, DMLA, and Boy Scouts, and then in developing an awareness between your lodge and the community. Your presentation should serve to enlighten, but your ultimate focus should be on generating interest in Masonry, identifying good men from all walks of life for potential membership, building a membership in your lodge, and always leaving a good impression. As a salesperson, you always want to make sure you share information that's vital. You can only share the information if you get the right questions answered first. Once you do that, you want to give them just enough so you can pique their interest and want them to come back for more. Just don't keep talking and talking and talking till you just run out of breath. You want it to be interactive, but you want them to walk away thinking, boy, you know what, that was great, and I can't wait to find out more. Always leave a good impression. Ensure that all members become engaged in the activities of the lodge in some fashion, and that they stay active. Brethren, if you have 200 members in your lodge, how many people are on the sidelines? 10, 20 plus line officers? So you're talking maybe 10, 15% of your membership. But the other people that are not, the other brothers who are not coming back, they haven't lost total interest in the lodge because they're paying their dues year after year after year. Wouldn't it be great to pick up the phone, call them, say, gee, you know, I'm sorry we haven't seen you in a while, or I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, but we have these programs that we really could use some committee people on. Visitation committee. Would you have the time to visit a brother or his family if it was a wife, it was in a hospital, nursing home, something like that? There's plenty of things that we can do to engage the members that we already have. The other lodge programs for the new brothers. We want them, once they've come in, they've taken their degrees, we want them to be active. Because if we don't do that, then they're just going to decide, you know, I just don't need to come next month. You get the Grand Master's Award. The Grand Master can take those committees that he's formed, put the new brothers on these committees. You have the Master's Builders Award for existing brothers, which you can go after as well. And then the Master Mason Rookie Award for all of the newly made brothers. Why don't brothers come back to lodge? Well, that's a good question. It's not only the lodge, but it could be your church, your temple. Almost all organizations are having a problem with membership. Biggest reason, they don't feel they belong. They don't feel welcome. As I mentioned before, there are cliques in every single lodge. If you tell me that your lodge doesn't have them, I would highly disagree. And if I think I came to your lodge, I could prove to you that, you know, people get comfortable. It's easy to go to your same friends all the time. I think we're all guilty of that to some point. But if somebody comes down to a lodge, many times they're sitting on the fence, like, is it really worth my time to do this? You know, it's getting to wintertime. Do I really want to be coming out when it's 30 degrees, 20 degrees? If they're not talking to anybody. So you as an ambassador, you need to be making sure people feel welcome. You want to find out if they were ever asked to do anything. Were they put on a committee? Do they have a program that they think could stimulate the lodge? They're also never told what to expect after the degrees. So that's one of the big reasons why a newly made brother does not come back to lodge, because over the last 3 months, he's been taught signs, do-gods, words, all these different things, and all of a sudden he's been made a third-degree Mason. The next month comes, and he's apprehensive because he's afraid that he may be called on to do some of these things. We need to assure him that that's not going to happen. So we need to get them to come back. The other reason, nobody ever called them. You know, if I'm paying my dues and I haven't been to lodge in a year and nobody ever called me back, it's a little disheartening. When you're at meetings, don't be the one doing all the talking. Ask questions of those in attendance. Go up to that brother sitting on the sidelines. How have they enjoyed their time since joining the craft? Are there any questions they have? Is there something that they would like to be doing? Do they have any recommendations for programs or events the lodge could run? How can we make the lodge better? You as a lodge ambassador, your job is to find out if everyone is enjoying themselves while they are there. Ask questions. If they're not happy or there's something on their mind, ask them what's going on. Then ask them, gee, what could we be doing better? So you'd feel more engaged in the lodge. Then you go to the master and say, look, I want to let you know that there's an issue with one or two of the brothers. This is what's going on. We had a lengthy discussion, but I believe it could be corrected by doing this, this, or that. So you don't want to go to the master and say, Worshipful Master, you know, there's 3 brothers that are very disheartened in the lodge. And the master said, well, what's the problem? I'm not really sure. Well, how do we fix it? Well, I don't really know. I didn't ask enough questions. The master doesn't have the time to be doing that. You should do it as lodge ambassador. Take the initiative. As a lodge ambassador, you're not expected to know everything. You're a resource. There's some basic information about who we are as a Grand Lodge, in your own lodge in particular. But when someone comes up to you, many times, especially if they're a historian or a historical buff, they're going to ask you some things about Freemason that you're not going to know. Don't worry about it. Just say, you know, that's a great question. I'm not even aware of that, but I will check into it. Can I have your telephone number or your email? I'd be glad to get back to you. Having marketing materials available for distribution. Most of what we have for brochures, DVDs, they're all available no charge through the Grand Lodge Supply Department. There's a couple of DVDs. I know that a lot of laptops no longer have DVDs, so we need to think about upgrading a little bit. However, we have plenty of brochures, and one of the brochures happens to be on Freemasonry and religion. If you have someone come up, starts asking you questions about religion, most times you're not going to be prepared to answer all their questions. Let them know you have a brochure, you'd be glad to get to them. If they have more questions, you can contact the master or speak to Grand Lodge, and they can have someone talk directly with this person to answer their questions about Freemasonry and religion. What about your own lodge? What marketing pieces do you offer? Think about developing a lodge information. It can look like a small flyer. It includes a history of your lodge, details on who you are and what you do, upcoming events, and then you want to contact the master, contacts for the master and secretary. They need to be able to reach out to someone. When you're talking about Freemasonry, people can find out things about in this country or worldwide on Freemasonry, but they want to know about your lodge. Why should I join your lodge? It's not only because Tuesday nights are open for me. Was there anything special in your lodge that has taken place in the past? Are there any prominent individuals? I mentioned last night we have James Bailey Upham. He was a member of Converse Lodge in Malden, and he co-wrote the Pledge of Allegiance. He's also the reason why American flags are flown at elementary schools throughout the country. There's several other prominent members of Converse Lodge. I made sure I wrote these down, put it into our history. It's brief enough, but it is hopefully going to get someone's interest. We're an organization that is always prospecting, not only to those good men, but to their family members as well. If you think you're only trying to get a man to join this fraternity, you're mistaken. We need to let their wives, girlfriends, partners know that this is a great organization. One of the things you want to do is to share the marketing materials, let them go home, watch it as a family. Decide as a family if this gentleman should join the craft. In everything you do, you must be genuine. You are the face of the lodge as well as Freemasonry worldwide. Many people may engage you in discussion, may have already formed an opinion of the craft. People have a right to their own opinion, and it's not your job to have to change it. All we can do is share what we offer and see if it makes sense to them. But then to be clear, Masonry is not for everyone. It's okay if someone wants to come up, find out information about the craft, and decide, this just really isn't what I'm looking for. That's all right. But you know what? Maybe in 5 years, they've changed their mind, and they'd like to come back. So when you're speaking with someone, give them enough information to pique their interest. As time goes on, they'll decide if they're interested or not. Not everyone is meant to be a Mason, and you need to let time, there is a time to let it go. Don't sell. We have a product, Freemasonry Brotherhood, that is so needed in today's society. Brother, about, I think it was March of 2017, there was an article in the Boston Globe, and it had to do with middle-aged men. The issue was not so much their health that was concerning people, but loneliness. So we have a great opportunity in this fraternity to bring in people who are older, not just the young men. So keep your eyes open when you're dealing with membership. One thing to remember, you can't say, come down and join the lodge or the fraternity. We can say, come down and learn more about the lodge or fraternity. If someone calls you up, you do not know who is on the phone. So when someone calls up and says, geez, I'd like to learn about the fraternity or membership, just say, gee, if you want to come down a certain day and time, I'd be glad to talk to you about our history and tell you a little bit more about the craft. So just be careful with that. Let's all get active and share this gift with more men, this Masonic year. Brother, if you have any questions on this, please feel free to reach out to Bill Yanakakis, Chairman of Grand Lodge Membership Committee, and we will be proceeding with Brother Eric Horgan. Oh, we have a first question before we move on.
Apparently we have several questions, Right Worshipful Brother. The first one was, this first module you presented contains so much information and things that lodges can be doing, widows programs, reaching out to the community, press releases, contacting your local media, all of these things. And you just pointed out, rightly so, that many of our lodges only have 10 or 15% of our membership on the sideline. So how do we get more brethren engaged in the process? It's clearly not just a one man being able to do all that. No man can do all this alone. So how can we go after that? How can we get more brethren engaged early on, or brethren that have been in the lodge for a number of years?
Sure. That's a great question. Some of the programs that we have out there now, the Rookie Award, the Master Builders Award, the Grand Masters Award, these are programs meant to engage the members. I can tell you from personal experience that when a master stands up in the front of a lodge room and says, "Brethren, I need help with the Widows program a week from Sunday," and that's it, no one's going to respond. But if the master reaches out one-on-one, calls up, "Hey, Ken, I really could use your help. Could you help us setting up a week from Sunday for the Widows program? Could you actually help deliver some poinsettias at the holidays? Could you come down and help clean up the yard?" If it's one-on-one, I think you're going to find more of a response than just a general, "Brethren, we need help." People join, they pay their dues, they still are proud to be in this fraternity, but many times they just have never been asked. Next question.
Very worshipful. Next question is from Eric Bai of the Meadows Lodge. How early in a brother's journey into the fraternity should we get them involved within the lodge?
So, it's a great question. I think it's important to get a new member engaged. There's a lot going on when that brother first starts taking his degrees, the lodges of instruction, cipher training. He's just all of a sudden coming from a situation where he's home with family, he's not obligated, and all of a sudden he's joining the fraternity, and he's out 1 or 2, 3 nights a month. So I think it's important we get them engaged. I think my personal take is, as they're going through the degrees, make them aware of what committees we have. What are the programs that we run? Ask them if there's anything in particular that interests them, and then kind of get them in a little bit at a time, so that after they're done with their degrees, all of that information, they now have something they can get active on. The important thing, too, is to remember, when you put a newly made brother on a committee, it has to be an active committee. It can't be something that meets once a year. It's got to be something that meets on a regular basis that they can put their time and efforts into. Otherwise, they will leave the fraternity and they'll take their talents elsewhere.
Excellent. Next question is from Right Worshipful Barry Standish of Mayflower Lodge. How many ambassadors should each lodge appoint?
So I believe, according to the Grand Lodge information, I believe that there's 5. There's a lodge lead ambassador, and there's, I think, 4 other ambassadors. The thing to remember is that we are all ambassadors, but only a certain amount can be appointed within the lodge. So I believe it's a total of 5. And although you've taken the training here today, you're ambassador trained, it does not mean that you are a lodge ambassador. The lodge ambassadors are appointed by the master of the lodge. And so we have the ambassador jewels. You're more than welcome to wear them if you've been appointed by the master as a lodge ambassador. If there's any questions, feel free to contact us. Yes.
Worshipful John McLeod of Weymouth United Masonic Lodge. Does Grand Lodge have anything that can help officers better train their members on Freemasonry's symbolism? The deeper meanings are not offered in cipher.
So if you go on the massmasons.org, there is a speakers bureau, and there's a multitude of speakers with a multitude of topics. So if there's something specific that you want, you can speak with those individuals, invite them to your lodge or a district event, and decide what you want. What are the areas that you want addressed? And they can have someone tailor a talk directly what you're looking for.
Next question is from Worshipful George Raymond of Weymouth United Masonic Lodge. There are multiple lodges that meet in his building. How should he get the lodges to work together at an open house versus competing for the Who is Better award?
Right. That is something that we are all, as a fraternity, are going to have to deal with moving forward. A lot of the older, more expensive buildings can't be maintained, and you're going to find the lodges are coming into one particular building in the district or the area. One of the biggest things happens to be, and I hate to say it's just as simple as a night But if I'm working second shift and the only night I have off are Tuesdays, and George Raymond's, his lodge, meets on a Tuesday, that's piqued my interest. I am not going to lose my job or have to go on a job search to now get Thursday nights off. So I think that's the biggest thing. The other thing to remember is that each lodge has its own personality. And I can tell you that I've had applicants come to me, I've sat down with them over coffee, and I realized at the end of the hour or two that my lodge just wouldn't be a good fit for them. But I do know one or two other lodges that they have the programs that they run every year that would be better suited for this person. My job for membership is not building my own membership necessarily, but it's building the fraternity. So I think each lodge within a particular building has to decide what are the strong points. These are the things that we do. Let a person decide, but say, okay, I've looked at the 4 or 5 different lodges in the building, and I've kind of narrowed it down. It's almost like searching out a vehicle, for example.
Next question is from Worshipful Eric Bay again, from the Meadows Lodge. What types of things might be good for an entered apprentice to be asked to do?
Well, I think he should wash the past district deputy's car and some of these things. No, well, I think he's going to be asked already to do a lot of things. An entered apprentice is going to come down, get a cipher book, and he's got Lodge of Instruction. There's a lot of things that, he's going to end up having to do. One of the best things I kind of enjoy is a lot of times what we'll do is we'll have the new candidates as they come in, they'll have dinner with everybody, and then they'll go and they'll help clean up. They'll go to every single table, help pick up the plates. They get a chance to see everyone, joke with them, and it gives them, they're forced to interact. One of the biggest things we always try to let candidates know is that we're a great fraternity. But unless you're willing to go up to somebody that you don't know, walk into a room that is so cold, it's freezing, and walk up to people you don't know and say, hi, I'm Ken Sprague. I just joined this lodge, and you are. So we need to learn to do that as brothers. You happy with that, Eric? Okay.
Next question from Worshipful George Raymond again, from Weymouth United Masonic Lodge. How do we approach the "that's not how we do that" or "that won't work" group in our lodges?
Right. That's not just in your lodge. It's everywhere. So I think what's important is that you take the people that make the decisions in your lodge, sit down as a group and say, look, brethren, this is a majority. Unless the master's running the lodge, which is now a dictatorship. But if you have a committee, it's really kind of a meeting of the minds, and it's majority rules. And if you have 10 people sitting around deciding what you want to do, whether it's for the Grand Master's Award or just for a couple of programs in your lodge, you're always going to have that, listen, things don't work. 30 years ago, we tried doing this. Well, times have changed. Marketing has changed. Mindset has changed. You have a lot of younger members that years ago, you didn't have this many young members in this fraternity. So they have to give it a shot. And just tell the brother, look, there's a high likelihood this isn't going to work because you said it wouldn't work. But let's give it a shot. Next year, we'll revisit this. If it doesn't work, we'll move on to something else.
This question's from Worshipful John McLeod, Weymouth United Masonic Lodge. What is the best way to contact your local community's officials, like the mayor, the town manager, selectmen, about attending community events?
So this is difficult. Many times, a lodge will approach a mayor and want him to come down. Well, why should he come down? You haven't really thought it through. What is it you're going to do? Here's an individual, male or female, who's mayor of your town, and they're invited to so many programs, just like the Grand Master of Masons. They cannot be in all places all the time. So you need to decide, okay, what is it? What is the function? What is it you're going to be doing? Why do you want this mayor there? Why do they have to be there? I'm not saying it can't happen, but you have to really put your head together and say, Your Honor, we have a presentation that we want to make to a local firefighter. He helped save this family from a burning building. So next Sunday at 2 o'clock, the firefighter is going to be there, the family is going to be there, and we would like you to be there so we can make a presentation. So what you've done is you've built value for them to take time out of their schedule. Does that make sense?
Worshipful George Raymond, Weymouth United Masonic Lodge, would like to know if there are any available media release items that can be taken advantage of, and also can they be edited for needs and uses of individual lodges?
Yes, and Eric Horgan is going to be talking about that. So there are articles that are already written by Grand Lodge. They're in Word form, so you can tweak them accordingly, whether it's the title, the date, time, the function. You can add quotes that came from you personally and put these in, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation. You don't want to just do these things 1 month before an open house. There's no reason why we as lodges can't be submitting articles on a monthly basis of what we're doing. So yes, all this information is available. It will be discussed pretty shortly.
Final question comes from Worshipful Eric By of the Meadows Lodge. How should we be involved in planning an open house?
I guess the question, we as ambassadors? So the ambassadors are spokesmen for the fraternity. So it's one thing to have spokesmen standing there, and we're going to talk about this at the open house module. But if you haven't done any marketing, you haven't given the community any reason to come by your building, you as ambassadors really don't need to be there. You're wasting everybody's time. So it's twofold. One is, as ambassadors, you need to know to have marketing materials there. What is it you're ultimately looking to do? You don't want to get someone to join that day. Your job as an ambassador the day of an open house is to pique someone's interest. Not only the gentleman, but whomever he is with. That's what you want to do. But prior to that, you need to do the marketing. And we're going to talk about that shortly, which is how do you get people in that building? Just like the story about the mayor a short time ago. Unless you pique that person's interest, give them a reason to be in that building, they have better things to be doing. So you need to think of what type of an open house you're going to have. What are you going to do at certain times? And then between those two things, you should do fine. I guess that's it for questions right now. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Brother Eric Horgan.
Thank you, Right Worshipful. Thanks, brethren, in the live audience, online, and the audience that we have here at our undisclosed location. Thank you very much for being here today. I think as we go through these presentations today, I'd like you to search and replace every time we say Grand Lodge with your brother, okay? Because it's actually your brothers that are coming up with these ideas and trying to facilitate your job as a lodge ambassador. You are the front line. One of the ways I may have answered one of the questions that we got, I think it was the first question we got. Brethren, if you're sending in a question online, please include your name and your lodge with the question so that we can use that when we read the questions. The question was about how do we force multiply, essentially, and I'm going to answer the question this way. A force multiplier, some of you may know, is essentially comes from the military, and what you are as lodge ambassadors are force multipliers. In the military, what a force multiplier does, let's say a team of 12 men will go out and train 100 people. Those 100 people go out and train an army. So we're going to present a lot to you. You are a resource to your lodge and to this jurisdiction. Our job as members of your membership and development committee is to educate you as to what's out there. So I hope that we succeed in that purpose today. I'm going to give my first module today. It's communication across generations. So what we want to be doing is we want to be thinking about those people that are interested in Freemasonry. Right Worshipful Sprague was talking about knowing your product. And I think it's also important to know your customer. It's very important that we adopt an attitude that one size does not fit all. This module is intended to get you to think about some of the tools that you might want to put in your tool belt when you get a potential candidate, either walk in your house at an open house, or someone that comments about your ring in the street, or comments about your Masonic license plate. You want to be ready to have tools, and you want to be ready to talk with that individual perhaps a little bit differently. What do I mean? Generational theory is a theory which suggests that generations are formed due to worldwide events. America's led the way for a long time, so the generations that I'm going to describe today are going to be generations that we're all familiar with and may not necessarily exist elsewhere, but in large part they do. And it's events, it's technology, those are some of the bases I'm going to hit today. The goals of this particular module is how to reach them, how to reach a potential candidate, how to recruit them, how to retain them. The next module I'm going to give is going to also address these and expand upon these a little bit more. I think the thing that we want to always be talking about is the value that this fraternity offers to them in becoming a member. Why is it of value to you to become a Freemason? We learned a lot. The Scottish Rite Northern Masonic Jurisdiction invested quite a bit of money over the last couple of years, and they did a couple of surveys which taught us as lodge ambassadors some very important things. One of the two surveys showed us that men that were not Freemasonries, that essentially got a cold call, they filled in a survey. 66% of those that responded to that survey would join Freemasonry if we talked about the value Freemasonry brings to the lives of a Freemason. And what are we talking about? What are the values that we teach, brethren? We teach virtue, we teach honesty, we teach truth, we teach friendship, family, country. Those are the things that if we talk about that, leading, that's a great segue into further conversations with a potential candidate. You know, for myself, and I'm sure for those of us online and those of us in the studio audience today, you know, when you talk about friendship, morality, and brotherly love, probably some of the more valuable tenets of our institution. You know, when I came in, you know, I thought, interesting, maybe a little corny, but now that I've been around a little bit of a while, those things are tangible to me. These things are part of who I am and what I understand Freemasonry to be. Don't be afraid to lead with this stuff. It's not going to sound corny. The surveys tell us this, and I bet your experience tells you that. Okay, who are the generations? I'm going to go through this very quickly. Who's out there? Okay, we've got the GI generation, the silent generation, the baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, and millennials. Going to make some generalizations here, and I hope I don't offend anybody. Okay, so if you're a person in the world today, this particular slide says, what's the matter with kids today? I don't think there's anything the matter with kids. We just know how to talk to them. But what we all have available to us at this point in this world, in the fortunate country that we live in, we have newsprint. We have mobile phones, we have devices, we have phones on our wrists now, Dick Tracy, we have direct mail, we have most everything online. So who uses these things? Who uses all of them? I think personally, and from what I know, is that a lot of us are using more and more of all of these things. Quickly, the GI generation, you know, these are folks that grew up during World War II. Made the contributions back then, often called our greatest generation by some. The silent generation, which are typically post-World War II and born of the World War II generation. Okay, so we're going to get into a few particulars, but these things are intuitive if you think about it. If you get somebody that comes into your open house or someone that looks at your ring and asks you about Freemasonry, and they were born, if you can say roughly, they're 1925 to 1944 and are of the silent generation, they're different. They have a respect for authority, not to say that other generations don't, but they may have more of a respect for authority. They have loyalty, the hard work, the dedication. Their work ethic is very high. They're used to being joiners. They're used to working for the same company their whole life. These people can be very powerful members of the fraternity, and I don't use the term membership lightly. I think one of the problems that that we can think a little bit differently about is that we're very good at making Masons. I think what we're here to help you to do is once they become Master Masons, is to already have their tires on the tarmac and going full speed. And we really want to think as a jurisdiction more about making members instead of just Masons. Members are active members. They're the ones that are on the committees and doing those things that help your lodge be better. This is important about this generation and probably the greatest generation as well, as they love the written word. We're a traditional fraternity, traditional organization. We like letters. We like letterheads. This generation and the one previous love to be communicated that well. One of the things that I do is with all potential candidates is I'll format my first email to them, and my first communication with them is email unless I can't raise them. If they don't respond to email, I call them, but I've got my lodge letterhead and my title at the bottom. Dear, sincerely, it's very professional. Along those lines, I encourage every ambassador to have, one of these $8 cases they can pick up on Etsy or Amazon that holds business cards. Have your lodge get you some business cards, membership business cards. I hand them out all the time. They're very, very valuable. My case not only includes the membership, and also there's the Mass Masons one that you can get through our stockroom up at your Grand Lodge. I've got a Scottish Rite card. I'm a member of the Scottish Rite as well, so I can talk about that, hand out a card. And then there's a DMLA card. It's wonderful. It's got a little QR code on the back. So who's that going to be more appealing to? Is it going to be appealing to a World War II generation or a millennial or a Gen X or a Gen Yer? But I know for myself, I've been teaching the World War II generation and the silent generation what a QR code is and where to get a free app on your phone. I'll talk a little bit more about that with this prop. This is something that's available. Every lodge should have received from their district deputy that small cardboard box that has materials specifically for your open house. It's got those pamphlets that are important to us. We'll talk a little bit more about 10 reasons why to join, religion and Freemasonry. This card is in there. This is a fantastic resource to have in your wallet. Hand it to someone who's a potential candidate. The 4 QR codes on the back show and point directly to how to become a Mason, how to find a lodge. It's got a video about Freemasonry, and that's our Find More campaign, that nice 2.5-minute video that inspires me and many of us. And then there's a video of the whole cornerstone ceremony, the laying of the new cornerstone ceremony in 2015 up in the State House. These are great. The folks can, in the privacy in their own time, can look at these videos. These are inspirational. We have the old stuff. We have the DVDs, which last night up in Framingham was suggested maybe we put them on a thumb drive. Who's got a DVD player anymore? We got to keep up. Part of keeping up and being able to talk with generations is to be up on this technology and using the technology properly for all generations. So you may say, I'm not that technologically inclined. Well, one way to activate that new young Mason that's coming in, face it, most younger men that join our fraternity are more fluent than myself. That's the truth. So if I've got a question, I go to them. If there's something that we want to do to expand the ability to communicate, whether that's on Facebook, coming up with a Facebook page, these are ideas that are new. Look at what Ezekiel Bates Lodge has done with, they had the 101 class a couple of years ago. Not only did they do it for their lodge, but they made it available to anybody and any lodge. This is what we need to be doing. My sense is that we're going to be getting together more in this format and sharing more ideas this way. And also, face-to-face. Those are the sorts of things that we need to be doing. Last night in Framingham at the ambassador training, we had a wonderful interactive thing with the audience. Okay, talking about the baby boomers now. It's the largest generation. It's got the most members. What can we say about them? My parents, I'm a baby boomer, told me, and it was obvious to me, that they wanted the world to be a better place for me. My generation's influenced by the civil rights movement, women's liberation, the space program. formative. You know, President Kennedy saying, let's go to the moon and space program, all of that. I remember watching that in school. Formed my generation. So did the Cold War and Vietnam. This generation tends to place, because they've got more disposable income in general, they seem to place higher value on their free time to taking better care of themselves. Have a cooking class in your lodge. Teach them how to prepare good foods. Give them a recipe. Send them home. These are things that you can be doing. They're just small things that can make a great deal of difference in terms of quality of life things, but also just engaging and getting your brethren active. I always asked a potential candidate before we even have the pre-application committee, you know, this is what our lodge does, and what do you like to do? Do you think you could fit in here? So that way, once they're raised, you know, we have another sit down and we say, well, now it's time to get busy. So this generation is typically optimistic by nature and idealistic. So Gen X, and then on to the misunderstood generation. They tend to be non-traditional, interested in new concepts and products, and have a global mindset. The internet, these things have formed this generation. Need to be sensitive to those things. Gen Y millennials. Okay, if you think about it, these individuals have no recollection of the Ronald Reagan era. They don't remember the Cold War. They only knew one Germany. Is that important to processing a potential candidate? It may well be, in terms of how you relate to them as if you're a middle-aged person, or you're an ambassador and you're of the silent generation or of the World War II generation. We need to populate our tool books. We need to look at everybody that comes in with wide open eyes. Yep. So what they know is that a world that has always had AIDS, answering machines, microwave ovens, video cassette recorders. These folks, chances are you're going to want to communicate with them initially professionally, always professionally, but as time proceeds, text. It's been my experience. Texting, immediate responses, short, not a 20-minute phone call. World War II generation, on the other hand, loves 20-minute phone calls. Okay, and Gen Z, born 2005 to the present. As far as I know, they can't join the fraternity yet. Okay. What are the implications for us as lodge ambassadors and Freemasonry in general, and for how we represent Freemasonry to these individuals? Okay, change the focus to us and not them. Be inclusive. Understand that the membership is the only reason it's our existence. That's what we are. We're in the business of membership. Focus on the important things, not the ancillary things. What might an ancillary thing be? It may, for the sake of that conversation, an independent body. You may love Scottish Rite. You may love York Rite, but it may not be appropriate to talk about that. If they tell you that their grandfather was a Shriner, talk about the Shriners. Make sense? Give them what they want. What's in it for me type of an idea. So communication tips. So we're going from older folks, silent generation. You need to build their trust, interact face-to-face or in writing, or that phone call. The baby boomers, this is not, this is common sense stuff. Answer the questions directly, short and to the point. Speak in an open and direct style. And then when you get to the generation Gen Ys, I think the salient points here in this slide is to communicate with them via email, voicemail, and text. It should be in this particular slide, but I think that should be intuitive. They're constantly looking for feedback, interaction, constant interaction. Okay, nice graphic. We need to be prepared to speak with and engage that entire spectrum. But first we need to listen why they're there and engage them. Okay. Well, these are things that are obvious as well, challenges and opportunities. We have to think of new ways of doing business. You as individual men, lodge ambassadors, have to think of new ways of doing things. If you don't have some of the skills, perhaps to read a QR card, demonstrate that technology, show somebody else how to use it, learn how to do it. It's not that difficult. Or find somebody that can teach people how to do it. Okay. I'm going to get right through this. Yeah. So as evidence, I'm going to go back to this bridging the gap, the last item there, the new meeting. And I think today is evidence of that. We're using some technology here, some pretty high technology. It's not brand new, but it's pretty new. PowerPoint's been around a while. And the LCD projectors has been around for a while, but streaming this stuff online live like this and having an interactive conversation with the fraternity and the craft is new. And you, brethren, are perhaps the first new meeting in the jurisdiction, if I could be so bold as to suggest that. And I think that based on how this goes today and some of the feedback that we're going to get from you over the next couple of days and weeks ahead will guide us. We're listening. We want to hear from you what you need. Of course, we have the CDs and DVDs. We've had those for ages. And something to offer those brethren that cannot attend, whether conference calling, Skype calling, live streaming. Okay. Just to reiterate here, listen to the new member, new potential candidate. Don't feel like you're standing alone. Get other brethren engaged, and let them know that once they join the fraternity, they have an immediate 300 or so brothers, depending on how many brethren you have in your lodge. Make it personal. Talk to them, listen to them, concentrate on the right things for that individual, and the generational idea really helps. Another way to look at understanding the difference here is that older generations might be used to, top-down management. It was normal in U.S. society. And back to the whole idea of joining a company and staying with that company for your entire career. That's not so much the case. It's less often the case today. And the newer generations and the younger folks out there are looking for servant-based leadership. That's expected, and you need to empower them, I think, is my takeaway from this particular slide, is we need to empower our brothers, let them know that as potential candidates, when you join this lodge, this is going to be your lodge. You're going to have input on the budget, voting how money's spent. You can start your own committee. You can start your own barbecue. You can get some other brethren involved. One of the things that my lodge started doing this year is having class projects. So if you have more than 2 or more brethren in a particular class, get a past master of your lodge, for instance, to guide them into performing some sort of a project for the lodge, something that's doable. Certainly you don't want them to fail, but it's a great way to attach them to your lodge. Okay, we're back to that graphic. And now I'm going to move right into another module here called Working Tools of the Lodge Ambassador. And this is something that Brother Joe Beaton, in his enthusiasm, put together. I'm going to give it. He could not be here today. Do we have another question from the live audience? Oh, we do. Stand by. We've got a couple of questions from the live audience and a couple of questions that have come in online.
To speed it up, we're just going to read the questions.
Just going to read the questions.
They can hear me.
Take it away.
How can we get historical info and media about our lodges?
It's a great question. Most lodges have records, and they have resources in the lodge. Many lodges have lodge historians. So if this question is coming from a potential lodge historian, what they can do is they can search paper, microfilm, microfiche, and search the history of their lodge. There's a number of different resources that they can use to write up history of their lodge. Now, I'll tell you that Right Worshipful Walter Hunt, Right Worshipful Walter Hunt, your Grand Lodge historian, has put together a wonderful site, massgenealogy.com, which is incredibly resourceful in terms of history of many of our lodges and many of our more prominent brethren over the years. It's another great resource.
I believe MassMasons.org has a history of every lodge. You may want to check it out here.
I have the history of the, oh, sorry.
We believe that Right Worshipful here has just suggested that MassMasons.org actually has a history of every lodge online and available. So there you go. There's a great place to start. You know, I know there's a historical society in my town, and they know things about my lodge that I never knew. So that's also a great resource.
We've always been told historically we do not recruit. What is the most acceptable way of approaching a potential member about joining our fraternity?
Well, I think one of the things that'll come out in a module that is going to come following this is you never want to say to anybody, come down and join the lodge. What you want to suggest is you come down to the lodge and learn more about Freemasonry. So I think it's very important not to get yourself into a situation where someone thinks they're coming down to join the lodge when you haven't even suggested necessarily that we don't take everybody. We take good men and make them better. We don't take bad men. So you never want to give anybody the wrong impression. So I think that's the lead-in that we're suggesting is to suggest to come on down to the lodge, meet some of the brethren, come to dinner. You know, there's more than just me behind my lodge. You know, I may be the first person you meet from my lodge, but there's a whole membership, and then there's a whole fraternity behind that.
Would you recommend a Get to Know Brother section in your notice to bridge the gap with those who may not make the meeting, to educate them on who the faces are in their lodge today?
It's a great idea. Yep. One of the suggestions you might want to take is all Master Masons, new Master Masons, stand at the front door and introduce themselves to everybody that comes in at a particular meeting. You know, everybody should, I think communication is the thing that comes to mind right here. Everybody in your lodge needs to have the ability to say, thanks for inviting me. I'm not available because I've got familial or work obligations, instead of, I wish I'd known about that, I would have come. Happens too often. So one of the things I think is really important here is to establish viable communications between all the brethren that want to be communicated with. And one of the ways to do that is to put something in your dues notice that every year is to have people update their email and their phone, and have your secretary or assistant secretary update that. And whatever modes that you use to communicate with your brethren, you know, you want to communicate with as many brethren as possible and invite them to as many things as possible, because not everybody comes to lodge. There's a lot of people that come to things other than lodge meetings. So maybe a way to go about that.
In the past few weeks, the lodges have received signage from Grand Lodge. Is there a way to get additional signage that can be placed around communities?
I would imagine that there are. I don't know if we had a fixed number of those made. I will find that out. I think the thing to do would be to contact Right Worshipful Alfredo Canute, because he was the one that actually ordered those kits, put those all together, and would know if there's a stash left of them. Another thing to do is talk to other lodges in your district and see if they're actually using them. Some lodges are just not going to use them. They don't have a place to put them up. So you might want to see if anybody's not using both of theirs.
Sometimes the best time at lodge isn't at lodge, but off-site with your brothers. Any ideas, events we could do to engage members and potential members?
Absolutely. So we've heard something about the CHIPS program, the Child Identification Program, things that your lodge can be doing in community. We're involved with, I've heard stories of lodges that are involved with their service centers, their town service centers, and helping with food banks and serving meals to, periodic meals to the homeless. There's lots and lots and lots of different ways to get involved with brethren outside of lodge. I think there are a lot more brethren that are looking for that sort of thing, and You know, they may come to lodge, but they're also looking for more outside. And there are those brethren that do not come to lodge that are more interested in doing things outside of lodge, quite honestly.
For those online, if you notice in the chat bar, Right Worshipful Canute has just placed his email address. So if you have any questions about the one-day class or signage that he has provided, please email him.
Thank you, Right Worshipful Canute.
Is there a specific time of year that is most effective in attracting potential candidates to Freemasonry?
No. No, we should be able to attract candidates all the time, and I know that Right Worshipful Brother Sprague is going to mention this very quickly, that even in the summertime, lodges and you as ambassadors should have programs. You should be ready to talk to anybody. One of the things I've seen is that the lodge ambassador will print out a sheet with suggesting that although we go dark July and August, you got to be on your toes, and hand it out to all the membership in June at the installation. We're your last meeting of the Masonic year, and your business cards, clip a couple of them to the top of that page, hand them out. No, we're always need to be ready. We need to be constantly vigilant that we may encounter a potential candidate anywhere, anytime, and you got to have your tool belt on. Got to have your mind in the right place. And you are the first line. You represent our fraternity. If someone's talking to you for the first time about our fraternity, you're it.
For many lodges, social media is the best outreach. Is that something Grand Lodge is moving towards to attract younger members?
Clearly. There are a number of Facebook pages and our media campaigns that are using social media to reach everyone. But as we know, those modes of communication and those technologies are being picked up first by the younger generation. So I know we have a number of ways to communicate with the brethren. Worshipful Brother Simmons, what is the Facebook page that any Mason can join that puts those priorities of our membership and development committee on the forefront?
There's a private Facebook group that only members of the group can add you. So if you're not in the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts private Facebook group, you are not getting all the information you could use.
And what is the name of that Facebook page?
Grand Lodge of Massachusetts.
Grand Lodge of Massachusetts. There you have it. So that's one of the more recent developments, and we found we had hundreds join the first day, and we're well over how many
Right
now?
around 2,000.
2,000 now. And if you choose not to sift through the front page of massmasons.org to see, for instance, the Golden Gavels, the Black Tie fundraiser for the Grand Master in October, those things that are on the front burner, that Facebook page in particular is designed specifically to address that, so that you've got the condensed, this is what's going on now, and it gives the membership an opportunity to respond. Another thing you can do if your lodge has, or your district has, or both has a Facebook page, is to sponsor that. Get some funds from your lodge to sponsor an event that you create or something. You've got a speaker coming in, you sponsor that event with $10 or $15. You're not going to reach hundreds. You could potentially reach thousands depending on how much money you spend, but it's short money for big return. I've heard multiple stories of lodges getting new candidates because they saw sponsored ads on Facebook.
From Brother Rooney, to amend your previous statement, any time is a good time to join Freemasonry, but September to January is a great time because Grand Lodge is doing paid advertising about Freemasonry to help you.
Brother Rooney, I love to be corrected, and thank you so much for sending in that elaboration. Appreciate that.
Can we have open houses anytime we want, or just the fall open house?
It's my understanding that you can have an open house anytime. Nobody's going to prevent you from doing that. We're all about membership and growing our fraternity. Grand Lodge sponsors one open house a year now. There used to be, up until a couple of years ago, two. Now there's the one in the fall that's sponsored, whereby Grand Lodge is preparing all those wonderful radio ads. There's the advertising campaign that you might hear. But we're encouraging you to find other times in the year that are particular for your lodge. Let's say you might have your town may close off Main Street in August and have a street fair. What a great day to have an open house. Open up your front door, put out a sandwich board, said, come on in, have some coffee. Have your ambassadors there for tours, for answering questions, all of that. Another thing is, having a parade, a Christmas parade at your lodge or in your town, and you've got a tree lighting. We're fortunate where we have a tree lighting. We had 500 people come in our front door that night. Yeah, you can have an open house anytime you want.
How do I engage a person that may be a perfect fit for masonry, but not know anything about it?
It's all about having that tool pouch and being ready to share with them the things that you found in Freemasonry, the values that you found, and start at the basics. We're an ancient fraternity, the oldest fraternity. We've got this many members. Know your product. We learned that in the last module. So I think just basically know your product is my short answer. Okay, thank you very much for the questions. We're going to move on to the next module. Working tools of the Lodge Ambassador. This is a short one. Okay, so I do not have, and I cannot replicate Brother Beaton's enthusiasm for this fraternity. I have my own, but he has his, and it is particular. He loves being a Mason. So do I. And I think anybody that's watching today or in our live studio audience also loves being a Mason. You wouldn't be here. So the goals of this module is to provide you as your Lodge Ambassador with some tools to reach, recruit, and retain new members. Some tools. Your job, you may not know, but Brother Beaton was an Army recruiter for 12 years and did a really good job at it, and carries his knowledge of recruitment, counseling, and retention into Freemasonry, and has very large success at Major General Henry Knox Lodge. So there's your job. So as a Masonic ambassador, you have these three duties as he sees it. You are a recruiter, you are a career counselor, and you are a retention non-commissioned officer. Let's elaborate that a little bit more on what that means to us. Okay, so as a Lodge Ambassador, I know from my own experience, I am the first face of Freemasonry. I develop a relationship. It's man-to-man. That's my philosophy. I suggest it could be yours. It's all about developing a relationship with that potential candidate. Make him feel your passion. If possible, have the first meeting away from the lodge. Take them out to dinner, have some coffee, maybe breakfast, and then have them to lodge for dinner prior to initiation. It's a great way to get them to introduce them to some of the membership, see that we get together, we have a good time, and the fraternalism that we all enjoy. And then, of course, the constant communication. So he's got a checklist, and it's nice to have a checklist. Maybe you want to come up with your own. You want to have a checklist that tells you when the application is complete. Background check results, not Corey yet for us, but have the results. Make sure that they have that. When you've populated an application with a potential candidate, you really want to stress to them that the first thing they want to do when they go home or get in their car is go on InfoCheck USA and pay the $13.95 and get that process initiated. Too often what happens is that when the investigation committee comes to meet with that candidate for the final visit, they don't have the background check, and clearly we can't move without the background check. So that's important. And if you're in the military, a copy of the DD 214, which is the documentation you need to prove that you're discharged, and make a check out for whatever the amount is for your lodge. Okay, so here's a follow-up template that I think we're going to try to post this as a Word document along with all the other documents. We're not going to try, we're going to do this. This follow-up template is just checking in. It's one of those touches that you make with a potential candidate, thanking them. Did they enjoy themselves? Inform them when their application for the degrees was read by the secretary. Might have happened last night, so the process has begun. Encourage them and inform them that you and your lodge are processing their application, and in a more less sterile sense, give them an idea that you're looking forward to having them in lodge. And sign it. Okay, so candidate's response that Brother Beaton got, and he's highlighted the most important part of the message, is the next day he got this response from a potential candidate. I said to my wife, Nelia, when I got home last night, how nice it was to walk into a strange place and to quickly be made feel like an old friend. We can do that. And as ambassadors, it's our job. So, counseling. So, you are probably the first Mason in that lodge, may well be the first brother that a potential candidate has met. Your relationship with him has only begun. It's been my experience, and I'm sure it's the experience of many of you. Because you're his first look into Masonry, he's going to continue to reach out to you for questions. He doesn't know the secretary yet. He doesn't know the master yet. You know, this is early on in the process that you're going to establish this relationship. Even while he's going through his degrees, he may not know everybody. He may not know the master. He's going to reach out to you first, more than likely, instead of calling up the master that he has yet to establish a relationship with. Okay? You may always be his go-to brother. Okay, retention. Last one here is we got to guard the west gate. We don't want to make Masons or members. Oh, they're not going to leave if they're members, probably. If we make them and engage them and make them active brothers, their chances are they're not going to walk out the west gate. But retention is our ultimate goal. When our job as a Masonic ambassador ends, I would argue that it never ends. The candidate is initiated, passed, and then raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason. Your job will continue. You have that initial relationship with that brother. So it's important for you to try to touch base with them regularly. So Brother Beaton came up with, I use one, I know he does, and we're going to post a facsimile suggested spreadsheet on Mass Masons for you. It's going to be an Excel spreadsheet, and it's a way to track your candidates. We couldn't fit it all on the screen, but it's going to be that particular individual, his full name, his address, how to get in touch with him, the initial contact, was it phone, email, his preferred method, when was he read? When was he balloted? When did he take his first degree? And you can track them all the way through. When did you get the application background check? So you've got your checklist. This is one of the letters that Brother Beaton sends out just to touch base with his potential candidates. And what he's doing here is he may send this out in July and August. So back to the question of what can we do. Is there a better time of the year than one to do, to seek potential candidates? And here, this is a letter that he writes out in July or August to potential candidates, letting them know that, hey, we're going to start meeting again next September, and we're going to be gearing back up. Essentially, we're thinking of you. This will also be posted as a suggestion on massmasons.org. Okay, so we are going to now transition into the third of our modules, again being given by Right Worshipful Brother Sprague, Masonic ambassadors, having a productive open house, and maintaining applicant interest. Worshipful Brother Simmons, do you have more questions in your hands? He has more questions.
What do you recommend doing if a person who showed interest drops contact? Is there a procedure to reconnect?
Well, Yes, and that's up to you to develop your own way of doing that. Some of the great suggestions I've heard in my experience and recently at these ambassador trainings is, when do you give up? You send them an email 3 times. When do you give up? At 4? How much time do you give them? Look, I know Worshipful Brother Sprague is going to talk a little bit about this in this module. So I'm going to let him answer that question. He does a great job with it. But maybe emailing, and this is back to the generations talk, maybe email isn't the way of communicating. Maybe you want to try texting or the phone call. Don't give up until you feel like you've exhausted all options. And honestly, when you get someone coming in your door or someone that comments about your ring and you engage them and they say they're interested in Freemasonry, they really may not be able or ready to join, able and ready, whether it's job responsibilities, familial obligations, life circumstances. They really want to join, but they can't. Oftentimes happen. So what you want to do is don't give up, because it may be the case that they're not ready to join this cycle. It may be next year or the year after. So don't give up. Contact them and find out what the story is. You want me to reach out to you in another year or 2? I'll do that.
Can we start the rookie award process once they've taken their first degree, if we want to?
Yes, you can, because the requirements of the rookie award you don't need to be a Master Mason, nor do you have to be a fellow craft. There are things that you can do. For instance, participate on a district deputy suite. That's one of those things to achieve the rookie award. So the short answer is yes. And the application for the rookie award is available on massmasons.org. The organization has been revitalized and it's spread to other jurisdictions, and it's a great way to engage and make members.
Should you get candidates for the upcoming year together before their first degree so they can begin to form those fraternal bonds early?
Why not? Absolutely. Absolutely. Have them all come to dinner. One of the things that I've seen done is to have candidate dinners at private homes. And that's a great way. And what you do is you have your district deputy come in, you have maybe the master of the lodge come in to speak to those folks, sit down, have a good meal, and fraternize and show them what it's all about. So I think that's all we have for questions now. We're going to move right on to the next module. Right Worshipful Brother Sprague.
Brother, before I get started, there's a couple of things I'd like to touch on, some of the questions that just came up. The most recent question was about getting the candidates, the applicants, together ahead of time. I'm the type of person where I like to set expectations. I think we always have to remember that in order to become a member of this craft, it has to be 100% ballot in favor. So I think we have to be, as a fraternity, as a lodge, we have to be very careful when we start. Let's say if we have 3 applicants coming in, and it's our policy that we want them to come down for meals, take part in a couple of programs, get used to doing this. We want to meet their families, have them get involved. What we're doing at this point, we're building a bond. So 6 months later, all of a sudden the ballot comes in, and one man is blackballed. What do you do then? You've made all these promises about a brotherhood, love for this person, whatever it happens to be of the family. Now this person's been blackballed. How do you deal with that? So I'm not saying it's not the right thing to do, because I think it's important that anyone who joins is a good fit for your lodge. Just remember that it's not automatic for membership. Make sense? One of the questions come up about having members, their face, a bio, in a notice. I think that's a great idea. Best time to be doing that is if you have a brother who's a 50-year veterans medal, and then the district deputy is going to come down, he's going to present this. If you had this in the notice, maybe invite the people that he maybe took degrees with or were lodge officers at the time. I know that there's a couple of masters. Every month they'll call a brother up, and it's Know Your Brother. And so the person will come up, he'll be introduced, and he's given 10 minutes to talk about who he is, his history, his background, why he joined, All these are great things to do, especially for brothers that haven't been in lodge in a while. Take the oldest ones, the ones most likely not to be around next year, the year after, you just don't know. But if you do that, you put them in the notice, my recommendation is that night you have a card, and all the brothers there sign the card saying, wishing you well, saw your information in the notice, and just we're thinking of you. And then mail that out, we hand deliver it. Most Worshipful Roger Peugeot said, the most important thing we can be doing is attending a Masonic funeral service for a brother. That is our priority. I don't disagree, but I like to take a step back and say, you have a brother, you receive a phone call, brother's 84 years old, he's been in a nursing home, passed away. None of the members know who this brother is. So we get 20 or 30 brothers to show up at a Masonic funeral service. We go in where we're performing this, and all I can hear in my mind are the sons sitting in the front row. Where were these men when my dad was in a nursing home, when he had no one there to talk to? This is a little too late for us. I think the Masonic funeral service is hugely important for us and for the family. But we as ambassadors, we need to be getting to the nursing homes, to the hospitals well in advance. Just let them know that you are a brother, we're thinking of you. Does that make sense? So we just can't be notified at the time a person has passed away. We need to keep in touch with them while they're still with us. Last thing before we move on is the calendar. If you as a Masonic ambassador want to be a superstar, get used to going on massmasons.org. Right Worshipful Elliot Tchaikovsky has done a great job. Comment was made about brothers who want to do social things. You and your lodge do not need to run one single social function. If you go on massmasons.org, look under the calendars, all the calendar has cigar nights, they have bowl-a-thons, they have all these different things that are open to us as Masons. If you made this list and put it in your monthly notice of all the things that are going on, the lodge brothers would say, holy cow, this lodge is super busy. Well, we are busy, but we're not doing any of it. We're taking advantage of other Masons who are running these programs. So go on massmasons.org, see what's out there, share it with people that are interested in doing social things in the craft. I'm going to go through the productive open houses. I'm going to talk about applicant interest. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I touched on this earlier. The day of the open house doesn't automatically mean that someone's going to walk in and want to join the fraternity. Because you got the best donut shop in the town to provide a couple of dozen donuts, you have 6 or 7 brothers there, they're all in suits, and the doors are open from 9 to 3, does not mean anyone's going to walk in. You haven't piqued their interest. So you want to make sure you have a marketing plan in place for the open house. Right now, ours is October 20th. We have about 3 weeks left. That is enough time to notify the media. Unless you do something and make it of interest, again, you're just not going to have that type of desired interest. Most active lodges in the state utilize ambassadors for running the open houses. They look forward to doing them. They have more candidates. They have more Rookie Award recipients. They pursue the Grand Master's Award. The least active lodges complain that open houses just don't work. I can tell you that Grand Lodge does keep records. When they do open houses, they ask for a report be filled out. What type of response did you get? Many of the lodges that complain that the open houses do not work, if you look back through history, the number of brothers that they raised in a Masonic year was the same number as those applicants that walked through the door in an open house. So had it not been for the open house, which they complained didn't work, they wouldn't have had any candidates, or at least many of them wouldn't have been there. So open houses do work. Again, but it all comes down to you putting the effort in ahead of time to get people to walk in your door. What are the most active lodges in the state doing? Again, they understand that open houses do work. They market well in advance. They use cooperative programs. Cooperative programs are, for example, having a blood drive, maybe having Boy Scouts there. You could have the YMCA there. Maybe they want to do a sign-up for a soccer program or something like that. When a young individual walks in there, they're with their parents. We're there. Again, it's very passive. We're not high pressure. But as their child is doing what they're doing, it gives us the opportunity to explain who we are and what we do. What do you need to do? What do you hope to accomplish? You can't do anything unless you know what you want to accomplish. Are you looking to get candidates? Are you looking to just become more informative and let people know that you're in the community? These are things you need to have in your plan for the open house. You want to have plenty of marketing materials. You want to get it out to the media ahead of time. The building, for example, you want to make sure it's ready to go. It's nice and clean. Men's room, ladies' room. Is there a side room that you can have candidates or potential candidates sit down with a couple of brothers that's private? If you have one table in the middle of the banquet hall and you have 3 people, the potential applicants, you're all at the same table, and at the end you got one guy that can't stop telling jokes, one guy is super loud. I mean, you cannot have any type of valuable conversation. So make sure you have quiet spaces you can take someone to. It's also not the time to be filling out an application. Get some information, who they are, where do they live, what's their information as far as email, telephone number, and again, the biggest question is, what's the best way to reach you? Now, what do you hope to accomplish? You want to show the public you're alive and well in your community. I can tell you that there is a local lodge that they have someone who cuts their lawn every 3 weeks. They also have a couple of containers where you drop off clothes or books. So if you happen to drive by on the 3rd week of the month, the lawn hasn't been mowed, it has been weed whacked, you've got bags of debris all around, they think this building is closed. So what type of what's the likelihood you're going to get a good response on an open house to a building that most of the people in town think it's closed or been repossessed? We have to make our buildings look sharp. They have to be clean, they have to be warm and welcoming. Curb appeal, that's what you need to think about, right, George? Curb appeal is huge. As I mentioned before, you want to generate a reason why people should stop by. Rural Lodge down in Quincy, when they had the old building, they used to have a couple of brothers dressed in certain garb, like Revolutionary era, and the people would be driving by, and they'd say, wow, what's going on in there? And they would generate some type of an interest. That's what we need to be doing. We talked about the marketing materials. These are all available through Grand Lodge. I touched on this briefly. You cannot advertise, come down and join the fraternity. You say, come down and find out more about the fraternity. Let's say you receive a phone call. A person has an appointment this morning at 2 o'clock, or this morning at 10 o'clock. They walk in the door, and it's a woman. You told me to come down, find out about joining the fraternity. Oops, I meant to say come down and find out more about the fraternity. If you have someone that comes in and they are interested in finding out more and they want to join, it is a woman or someone that you just don't have an answer to, take their information just like you normally would. Then you call Grand Lodge on Monday, ask for Robert Hugh, give him the information, and let him deal with it. You just don't want to be put in a spot. Treat the person with dignity, respect, give them the information you would anybody else, but turn it over to Grand Lodge. We're going to be talking about the information coming in from Grand Lodge as far as marketing. I'm in sales. There's things as cold leads, warm leads, hot leads. Everything has a rating. And if I am going to bring down my cousin to join this fraternity, who's known me our entire lives, that's a hot lead, because both of our parents or fathers were Masons. If we happen to go to, let's say, a local church, we do a coffee hour, and we have people come up, they express an interest because members of their family were members of the fraternity. That's kind of a warm lead. Something that comes in from the internet, although it is marketed to, it's a cold lead. We need to make it warm. We need to stay on top of it. We need to follow through. We can't lose the lead. We need to make it warm. So that's something we have to all work on. But a personal referral to the fraternity is better than any media advertising. Just think of it, if you have 20 brothers in your lodge that come on a regular basis. The master said to you, I want every one of you to commit for the next 5 years, that each year you'll each bring in one new member. Think of where you would be. You know, and we all know one person a year. The problem is I'm waiting for somebody else to do it, not me. So what is it we need to do to motivate ourselves? Because the fraternity is only growing smaller, and we can't blame the person sitting next to us. Preparing the building for the day. There's a situation where there are lodges that want to do spring cleaning on the day of the open house. I'm not saying it's not a bad thing. This is just my opinion. If I am new to this fraternity, I walk in the door and the first person I see is cleaning gutters and he smells like he's been there for a week. First thing I'm thinking is, I don't have time to clean my own house. Now they want me to come down and clean this on weekends. Is that correct? Well, it doesn't matter if it's correct. It's my impression. That's what we're forming as an impression. As opposed to driving into a parking lot that's nicely done, you walk in the front door, it's clean, everything's ready to go, and you have some fairly sharp-looking ambassadors with information to greet you about the fraternity. Now at least I can focus on the reason I'm there, which is potential membership, not freaking out that I'm going to have to climb a ladder, which I'm afraid of heights. So think of it. Cooperative programs, blood drives, bone marrow registry drives, Rainbow, DMLA, Boy Scouts, local YMCA, My Chip events. You know, maybe, for example, you have the police. Let's say, for example, on the 20th, you have the open house from 9 to 3. At 10 o'clock, you have the SWAT team to come down and you do a canine event. 11 o'clock, you have a rescue by the fire department. At 1 o'clock, you have a couple of the Shrine Clowns come down to do, some balloons, something on that idea. So there's things that you can do during the day. These are all free of charge to do. And you will stimulate interest for people to come by at different times. Having brothers ready for the day. Who's going to set up? Who's going to clean up? What shifts will they participate in? Have they been educated on what to say? That's why you as ambassadors are being trained now. Who's the greeter? Do you have multilingual members just in case? Who will be in charge? 6 hours is a long time. I got to tell you, I work all week long. I'm exhausted. Do I want to be in an open house for 6 hours? I really don't. However, I'm more than happy to come in at 7, open it up, put the lights on, get the coffee ready. I'll get the donuts ready. I'll work from 9 to 12. Super happy to do that. So we'll get somebody else that'll come in at around 11:45 and work till the end and clean up. So you get enough people to do this, we can all kind of share the burden, so to speak. But now we're all energized, we're ready to go. Difficulty lies when, as I mentioned last night, you have 5 ambassadors. Somebody walks in, wants to learn about the craft. Where are the 5 ambassadors? They're making donuts. Pancakes. They're all in the kitchen. They're not where they need to be. You are the spokesman for the lodge, for the fraternity. You need to be out front. You need to be a greeter. You need to find out when someone walks in the door, gee, why are they there? Are they just here for the free breakfast? Well, then take them in for the free breakfast. Don't sell them. If they're here to learn about the fraternity, fine. Let me introduce you to one of our brothers. Maybe it's the past master. That's what a greeter needs to do. Put them in the right position with the right person. Again, what's your plan for dealing with the attendees? We just touched on this. Now, following up, this is huge. In my opinion, you should not be filling out any applications the day of the event. You want to have people walk away thinking, boy, you know what? I learned a lot. I learned stuff that I couldn't learn online. And I assure you that if somebody walks in the door, they've already been online doing a lot of background checking as far as what the Masons do. So they're going to ask these questions. But when they walk away, you want to have them with information that they can share with their family, and they want to come back. So the last thing you want to do is if you know an ambassador that doesn't know when to stop talking, and we all know those people, that is not the person you want as an ambassador or a greeter. Because what they're going to do is they're going to tell everything they know about this fraternity, which will go on well over 45 minutes. Never ask any questions. They'll just tell them. So when the person walks out of the room, they're going to say, like, holy cow, I will never do this again. So leave them wanting more. How are you going to measure success or disappointment? Are you going to be truthful with yourself? If you say, gee, you know what, we only had one person through that door. I can't believe Grand Lodge is making us do this. I don't know why we keep doing this. I just wasted my time. So the next question is, why were you wasting your time? Why did only one person come through the door? If it's because there was torrential downpours, Mother Nature just didn't like that day, it is what it is. We all went through it. But if you're honest with yourself and say, you know what, we didn't put an ad in the newspaper until the day before the open house. We didn't put our signs out that Grand Lodge gave us until last night. We have no one to blame but ourselves. If you want to put the blame on somebody else, you shouldn't be a lodge ambassador. You want to look back and see, what did we do right? What do we do wrong? And what can we do between now and next October? Because, no surprise, guys, third Saturday in October is going to be another open house. So you have 12 more months. Instead of you coming up and saying, Grand Lodge surprised us. I didn't know it was going to be the third Saturday. Well, it's been the third Saturday for 10 years now. Plan for next year. Plan for 3 weeks from now. Just plan and do it. I think that's the biggest thing, is just do it. Advertise early and often. I think I've heard that before. Don't oversell. Nobody wants to have someone just throwing up on them information, especially if it's what I don't want to hear. You have no idea why I'm there, what is piquing my interest in this fraternity, until you ask me that question. So learn to ask questions and then just close your mouth. Find out. So as far as dress, this certainly comes down to the lodge master of what he wants to do. In my opinion, I would like to see all the brothers in attendance in suits or jackets and ties. Everything we do in this fraternity is jackets and ties. There's a certain dignity about being a Freemason and when we gather. I also like the idea that the master be in a tuxedo with collar and apron. The reason I say that is this. You have a lot of young men who remember, as a kid, their father or grandfather or uncle getting ready in their tuxedo to go to lodge. They remember that. And all of a sudden they come into a lodge building for an open house, and yes, the brothers are in suits, but nobody has that tuxedo on. That mystique doesn't seem to be there. And all of a sudden the master walks through the door. They're like, wow, this is what kind of spurred my interest. This is my opinion. Doesn't mean that works in every single lodge, but I just think that having that one person has that wow factor. But the open houses do work. We just have to work them. Anybody watch Seinfeld? What's the point of the conversation? Keeping the reservation. What this has to do with, in the Seinfeld episode, he ordered a car. He went to get the car, and they didn't have the paperwork. And he said that the big job is you need to keep, once you get the reservation, you need to keep it. This happens with an applicant comes in the door, fills out information. He's a good possible candidate. At the end of the open house, on Monday, the master calls up and says, who was it that met with that applicant? Well, I think George did. Calls George. George, you have the paperwork? I don't have the paperwork. I thought Ken had the paperwork. It must be at the lodge building. Well, you're not keeping the reservation. You just let a great potential candidate slip through your hands because nobody was paying attention. Somebody has to be in charge. The ways that we can bring in new candidates, certainly open houses. Introduction from another member is a hot lead. Friends, co-workers, members from your church or temple. Grand Lodge referrals. We had talked about this briefly. It's going to be discussed a little bit later. These are coming in. I believe there's 800 referrals in 1 month that came in. Are they all great leads? No. Are many of them great leads? Absolutely. If we don't keep the reservation, if we don't keep the paperwork, once we get it from Chris Rooney or Robert Hugh, does it make sense? No, we're wasting our time. So there's a great opportunity for us through the Grand Lodge referrals. Pre-application, what do you provide them? It's one thing when someone comes in, you've just spent half an hour talking about how great your lodge is, how great this fraternity is. You've told them everything we do. You just ad nauseum. They walk home and their wife, girlfriend, or their partner says, what did you learn? All I know is Ken Sprague told me this is a great fraternity and it's awesome. Well, what else? I haven't got a clue. But if I meet with someone and I tell them about who we are, my thing is I want them to leave wanting more. So when they leave, I'm going to give them DVD or more, some booklets that make sense so that they can go back and share with their family because it's the family that joins this fraternity, not that one individual. So I want them to be able to go back and share information. Oh, by the way, Ken mentioned this about the local things that they do, 10 reasons to be a Mason. You know, here's some of the things that they do on an annual basis. Here are some events coming up. So now you can share it with them. Let them experience the benefit of this fraternity. So let's talk about the application process. As an ambassador, it does not necessarily mean that you're going to be on the investigating committee. However, ambassadors being very active members, who do masters generally appoint for investigating committees or all committees? The most active members. We're busy for a reason, because we follow through, we do what we're going to say we're going to do. So there's been an issue as far as the applications and the background check. I just want to touch on briefly. So the way it works is, for an open house, you get some basic information. We don't recommend you do the actual application process. What you do is you follow through afterwards. When you tell them you're going to call, you call. You make an appointment. At that point, you go and you sit down with this applicant, maybe yourself and one or two other people. Then you give them the information, the application. It'll include the 4 forms from Grand Lodge, which they are to fill out in their entirety, as well as the background check. You let them know that once you leave, at some point you want them to call for the background check. We, as a lodge, will then reach out to them probably within a month about setting another appointment. We'd like them to have the background check at that time. Okay, everybody with me so far? So, when the application is completed, whether it's at that meeting or the candidate says it's now ready and he drops it off, at that point, the application goes back with a check to the master of the lodge. The master reads it and then appoints an investigating committee. If I happen to be the chairman of the investigating committee, I now call that applicant, tell them, gee, there's 2 or 3 of us that would like to come out and meet with you at your home, or if there's another place that's convenient, what day works well. By the way, we left you a form for the background check. Do you have that ready? The person says no, just say, gee, how long will it take you to get that? It's taking me a week. Okay, great. I will call you next Monday. Next Monday comes, and this is going to address something that somebody said about how often or what if the person stops responding. If a person never gets the background check, there's a reason why. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's something in their background. It just may mean that they've lost interest. It's getting to the point that they've thought about that. I don't think maybe now is the best time. That's okay. Best thing we can do as a fraternity is leave on a positive note, saying, look, you have the information. We would love to talk to you further about Masonry when you're ready. We'll follow up every once in a while, but if you ever change your mind, here's our contact information. Does that make sense? But let's just say you call back the next Monday and say, gee, do you have the background check? Yeah, I do, as a matter of fact, Ken. So now you make an appointment to go out and you speak with them. When you're there, you talk to them about the application, any questions that they have, the fact that you meet on, let's say, a Tuesday night. Is that a problem? No, it's perfect, Ken. Oh, by the way, if things go well, we have what we call a lodge of instruction. This is what this is. This is when it meets. Do you have any problem meeting that night either? No, that'd be great too. Perfect. Last thing we want to talk about is this background check. Could we just take a look at it, please? Person passes it over, you look at it. If there's something on there, you ask whatever questions you feel are necessary to get your questions answered. If there's nothing on there, that's fine. If there's something on there that you're not sure about, you just tell them we'll be back in touch and we're going to continue with the process, but then you contact the lodge master. He needs to know what's going on. The thing to remember is the investigating committee of 3 represents the membership of their lodge. So if 3 brothers go out, they meet with an applicant, they look at the person's background check, and they have no concerns with what's on there. When they leave, and they will not be taking the background check with them, that always stays with the candidate. When they go back and they fill out their form, and they come back and say, it's full and favorable, we don't have a problem. We represent the membership. Does that make sense? Now, somebody could stand up and say, gee, you come back full and favorable. Can we ask you, how long was this applicant in town? Did he go to school here? What do you know about him? That type of thing. But as far as the background check is never to be discussed. It's nobody's business. There was a time when I was sitting at a lodge dinner, and the table next to me had 2 members of an investigating committee talk about a background check they had just done or reviewed with a candidate. Now, I sponsored that candidate. And so I heard them at dinner talking about this. I was furious. So the background check is for information purposes. It is not to be shared with anybody else, and it never comes back to the lodge. Does that make sense? Okay. We kind of touched on these. Now the follow-up. We've touched on this throughout this module is you have the information, now you follow up. How often do you follow up? How do you reach out to them? What's the next steps? So you need to have somebody in place that's going to do this. You can't have it be the master. The master will appoint someone to do that, hopefully a lead ambassador or a mentor. So you work with them to do that. That is the end of this module. Are there any questions? I guess there are a couple of questions. You're just gathering them now. And I think the first question was, why couldn't you guys get anybody better looking to present the module? So I want to apologize. No. Okay. At this time, I'm going to introduce Brother Eric Horgan.
Thank you, Right Worshipful. The last module, if you will, is essentially an MP4. It's a short video put together by Brother Chris Rooney from your Communications and Marketing Office up at the Grand Lodge, your Grand Lodge. As we've done these training sessions at the ones that we've conducted, it's surprising how few brethren actually know what Sharp Spring is. And I'll summarize it as best I can right now. And Brother Rooney will go into this in the video that he made. He'll elaborate. It is a CRM. It's a customer management software that we're utilizing to interface with potential candidates that address an interest in Freemasonry through massmasonry.org, massfreemasonry.org. So it's our public face. So that's enough said about that, but what I do want to say is how few brethren and our ambassadors actually know about this. And there's several reasons for that. I don't need to get into that. If you do not know about Sharp Spring, this video will inform you. We are going to also post this 12-page PDF put together by Brother Rooney, which elaborates on pretty much everything you're going to need to know. So why don't we get right into that? Brother Audette, is this just going to be me advancing a slide?
I'm actually going to play the video for you.
Thank you very much. Please do.
Brethren, thanks for accepting the assignment of Lodge Ambassador from your Worship Master. I'm Christopher Rooney. I'm the Associate Director of Communications for your Grand Lodge. In this video, I'm going to show you how you will be communicated with when you receive a new potential candidate for your lodge. Grand Lodge's advertising is designed to get men to request more information about Freemasonry via website form submissions. These submissions are automatically routed to you through a piece of software we license from our advertising partner called SharpSpring. Now, generally speaking, all you will need to do to be successful using this system is simply use your preferred email provider. All of our form submissions that are relevant to you and your lodge will be emailed to you as they come in. It is absolutely critical that you make an effort to respond to men who are interested in Freemasonry as soon as it is feasible for you to do so. Now, we are well aware that the majority of you have full-time jobs, families that you have to attend to, and that's what makes this software so useful for all of us, because we're able to automate a few of the initial contact messages for you and make you look really sharp to each potential new candidate for your lodge. Now let's dive in. This is a registration page on massfreemasonry.org. You can see that this particular page is geared for this upcoming open house period here in 2018. There is a generic contact form that works the same way for all of the steps that I am about to show you. Now, when someone clicks on one of our various digital ads they'll see during this upcoming promotional period, this is the page they will end up on. You will see here that I have actually already auto-populated the form with my own personal information. So I'll be using my own town as an example. Now, currently, I live in the town of Natick, so we'll be using Meridian Lodge in Natick as an example here for you. The software assigns leads to a nearby lodge based on the town entered here on this form, and that's why we'll be looking at Meridian Lodge. If I were actually submitting this form, my information would automatically go into our software, And here's what happens under the hood, so to speak. You can see here that this is the assignment page that we have configured for Meridian Lodge. Now, as soon as a form from Natick is submitted, the recipient's information is automatically delivered to the system, and that person is assigned to Meridian Lodge. And they are assigned to Meridian Lodge's current ambassador, who we have in our system as Jay Snyder. Within 1 minute of form submission, the initial contact begins in 2 phases. First, the candidate himself, so in this example, me, will receive an email that looks like this. You can see this really intimidating looking code here that's customized in the header. This is just simply the information, the merge field information, that allows this email to be customized to look like it came from Jay. That's right. Every single email that goes out from SharpSpring through these forms is actually personalized to come directly from the local lodge ambassador. Since this is an open house registration, you can see that this particular email actually pushes me to reach out to Jay and meet him at the upcoming open house to learn more information about Freemasonry. Now, at the same time that I would receive this email from Jay, we're not forgetting about you. You will be receiving a notification as well. And that comes in and it looks like this. Again, you can see this intimidating customization information. That's just so we get your name in there when it is appropriate for it to do so. And you can see here that this actually indicates that I registered to show up at the open house on October 20th, which is when that is, this upcoming year. Now, from here, as the potential candidate, I could reply to the email that I received, and it would go directly to Jay. It is at this point that it is up to Jay, and up to each of you, to take over the conversation and interact with this potential candidate. Now, there are a few things you need to know about how all this works before I let you go back to the rest of your training. First, each candidate will receive a follow-up email after this email goes out, either a week or 2 later, from the communications office, me, asking them if they were helped. So we do have a fail-safe option there for them to reach back out to us and try again if for some reason you were unable to get back to this person if they had any questions for you. Second, we recognize the importance of not publicly listing your contact information. So the email address we use to correspond on your behalf is an alias. It is not your personal email. We do not disclose that information up front to a candidate. They will see a Mass Freemasonry domain account for your lodge. So in this example, Jay would be emailing me from meridian@massfreemasonry.net. Now these alias accounts also send carbon copies of all correspondence to a key set of individuals for your lodge. But you should still be the only person who replies to a candidate. Those individuals are the Worshipful Master, the District Deputy, the District Ambassador, and Grand Lodge through my office. This is simply so we can keep several eyes on top of this process, but also for record-keeping purposes in my individual case. Third, and perhaps most important, there is a PDF guide called Using SharpSpring for Your Lodge that I wrote for you that has more comprehensive information in it. I have asked for it to be made available on massmasons.org under the open house postage stamp for you to access. If it is not there, please email me directly and I will send you a copy. My contact information is here, and you can find this page under the Grand Lodge top level menu on massfreemasonry.org.
Thank you, Brother Rooney. A lot of information. It's information dense. It is. This PDF document that Brother Rooney put together is wonderful. It is available through massfreemasonry.org. It will also be available very soon behind the ambassador training stamp on the front page of massmasons.org as well. Been a lot of information today, brethren. We're gonna get ready to close up now. We hope that you have learned something today, and if you have more questions, to reach out to us. If, for instance, with this particular SharpSpring module, if Grand Lodge doesn't know that you're the Masonic ambassador appointed by your master, you're not going to be getting these SharpSpring emails, and you're not going to be alerted of potential candidates that come to us through massfreemasonry.org. So Brother Rooney has shown you how to find his information, and I would encourage you to get your email to him if he does not already have it and you are not receiving these emails. Do that post haste. We don't want to miss potential candidates. He's in the Communications and Development Office up at your Grand Lodge. So please feel free to reach out and contact him. I want to tell you another thing that Worshipful Brother Simmons and others have initiated is something called the Wave Promotion. So this is back to marketing our open house. So every week now, up until our open house on October 20th, twice a week, if you would like, you can be sent everything you need to copy and paste and upload. There's going to be an image and some text to a Facebook post, which is being suggested to you schedule the post so it comes out, I think, yesterday afternoon at 4 or day before yesterday at 4 was our last wave promotion. And what this is intended to do, and it is meeting with great success, easy to do. Take you 2 minutes to set up this Facebook post and schedule it. Walk away and it fires off all by itself. Is you can join our particular Facebook page, the Mass Freemasons. You need to be on Facebook to do that. And if you're not, you can, Worshipful Brother Simmons contact you directly and ask. But the easiest way is if you're on Facebook is to just join that group. Grand Lodge Facebook page. Okay. So in closing, brethren, we are the foot soldiers. We are the first image of Freemasonry that a man, potential candidate, may have of our fraternity. You're in touch with these new members and potential members. If they have ideas and you're encouraging them to think outside the box and to build something new at your lodge, raise it up the flagpole. What I'm suggesting is take it to the master of the lodge and you're the voice. You're the voice of these new members. We are responsible to follow through with any leads we get. If you initiate contact, follow through until contact is no longer desired. This whole training, ambassador training that we've rolled out recently is not intended for just this year. It's intended to help you build your lodge and make your lodge a better lodge and make our fraternity as a whole better. You know, we're going to be rolling out other things I can imagine over the coming months to help you do a better job, bring you ideas, and support you in executing those ideas. So I would like to thank Brother Jason Audette, who has done a stellar job on the audio-visual and technical side of things today. You can probably go home and get some rest now. And he was up all night. I'd like to thank Worshipful Adam Perel, the current master of Ezekiel Bates, for hosting us. Worshipful Brother Brian Simmons for facilitating and helping out in so many ways. And, of course, Right Worshipful Brother Ken Sprague for his support and guidance. And brethren at home and our studio audience, thank you so much for participating, and we look forward to being back in touch with you sometime soon. Thank you.